What's going on? DJ Zimmy here, Private Stock Records. Welcome to my makeup tutorial. No, just kidding. I'm here to give you a couple tips for live streaming, specifically with OBS. I am teching all of the DJs that are streaming on the Private Stock Records Twitch channel. I'm also helping tech a lot of DJs that are streaming on other channels, and I'm having a lot of the same conversations over and over again, so I figured I'd make a video, might be able to help out. Not with your problems in life, just with some streaming problems you may have. The other important thing to remember is this is not a tech support line. Google is free and it is your best friend. There are no stupid questions, only the ones that you ask me before you Google. So, first recommendation, hardwire your internet. Me personally, when I stream, I'm in one room, my router's in the other room. I bought the dongle, I bought a 50-foot XLR cable, and I literally, every time I stream, I run it from my router over to my streaming laptop. When I'm done, I just roll it back up. If it's possible, do that. I know sometimes even people get the crazy, beefy business Wi-Fi, but if you have any sort of an issue and you drop a connection on Twitch or something, you definitely lose viewers. I see big drops in numbers when people go offline and then come back, even if it's for a very short amount of time. Next tip, proper audio interface. We had a situation recently where we had a bunch of people streaming back to back, and it became very clear when you could see one DJ after the other who maybe needed to step their audio interface game up a little bit. Some of the DJs that were using loopback or iRig or some of the lower end audio interface situations definitely had, number one, worse sound. There are a lot of options out there for audio interfaces. Some are hard to find, some are a little pricey because there's not a lot of selection, people are price gouging, etc. There's some other things you could think about. When I first started streaming, I was using a Mackie mixer. It was an 8-channel, but it had a USB out. Worked fine. It was pretty bulky, so when I moved, I set up a permanent streaming situation in a different room. I use a Zoom H4n audio recorder, and I'll put a link to that down there. It takes XLR in, quarter inch, I think it even takes 1/8 inch, but it sends USB. It has an audio interface mode. The H4n, the H5, the H6, there's a bunch of different audio interfaces you can buy that are more recorders, or they serve some other main purpose, but they will function as an audio interface. You might even have something laying around your house that you didn't even think of. The other nice thing is the audio interface you might buy just to stream might only serve one purpose, whereas if you buy a used recorder that can be an audio interface also, you can use it for something else later, so it's a better value. Speaking of better values, Swiss Army knife, I am not using a webcam. I'm using 2 old iPhones and the OBS camera app, which I will also put a link to in the description. It's basically an app that turns your phone into a webcam. You can get it for Android or Apple. One of the reasons I like that is a lot of people have old phones laying around. Also, old phones are pretty cheap to come by. You can get a used iPhone 7 on some secondhand sites for $100, $150 maybe. I'm using an iPhone 6 and an iPhone 8. The other nice thing is, there's a little bit of price gouging going on with some webcams, but also if you buy a used phone, yeah, you can use it as a webcam, but also you can use it as a monitor to watch your feed when you're on Twitch. You can use it to go on Instagram Live or Facebook Live or some other thing like that. So a phone is going to do a lot more than just a webcam, so it's kind of a better investment in my opinion. Anyways, that's for you to decide. But again, you might have a phone just laying around. So that brings us to the most important tip that I need to talk about that a lot of people ignore. That is the auto configuration wizard in OBS. So let's go over to our OBS. If you're using OBS, there's a bunch of different ways to stream. You can use Streamlabs, Twitch has their own streaming platform, there's all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about OBS because that's what most of the DJs on my platform are using. That's what I'm probably the most versed in. So the biggest thing you want to do is you want to use your auto configuration wizard. It's just going to look at your computer, it's going to push the processor up to a certain limit, see what it can handle, and it's going to recommend output settings for you. Now, a lot of people have hit me and said, I don't know what's going on, I need to get the business internet or something, or I don't know what's going on with my computer, because they think they need to be streaming at 1080 and they don't understand why they can't. there's a pretty good chance, without even knowing what you're using, you're not going to be streaming at 1080. Thus far, I've had one person stream on 1080p, and they're on a brand new iMac. Depending on how old your computer is and depending on the specs, it's going to tell you whatever is going to work with no video dropouts, none of that choppiness, and clean audio. If you just accept what it tells you, you'll be fine. If you try to go above that, you're going to have some problems. So let's go into OBS and do the auto configuration wizard. So you go right up here to Tools, Auto Configuration Wizard. You're going to optimize for streaming. Recording is secondary. Hit Next. Your base canvas, that is the canvas of your laptop, the canvas size. If you're on an older laptop, like a 2011 MacBook Pro, you might see 1280 by 720 here. This says 1920 by 1080 for my computer. Frames per second, let's go with 30. Just a quick note about frame rates. The human eye sees at 24 frames a second. 30 frames a second is going to make it a little bit smoother for you. 60 frames a second is what people shoot when they want to edit the video into slow motion. You are not going to be doing anything on Twitch that you're going to later edit into slow motion. It doesn't make any sense. You're not even going to be doing anything on Twitch so fast that you need that high of a frame rate. It's just extra bandwidth you don't need. So choose 30. Put in your service information, which is Twitch or whatever you're using. Hit Next. It's going to give you the gray fuzzy snow screen. And this is basically where it's testing your computer, all of the things. Just let this run. It might take like a minute. Also, the nice thing about OBS in the bottom, you can see your processor usage right here. We're going to talk about that in a second. So the auto configuration wizard ran. It's telling me right here, output resolution 1280 by 720, 30 frames a second. You want to hit the apply settings button. If you change your bitrate, if you change any of this, make it higher than it is now, I can't guarantee that you're going to have success. So now that we've run that, you see what your best output resolution is, and I know you're probably upset because it's not 1080 or whatever. To be honest, I stream at 960 by 540. It looks totally fine. We had a guy on our stream the other day that was at 480. I was super concerned, but like based on the size he was with his overlay and everything, looked totally fine. Most people are watching on mobile. Most people are just watching the chat. They're listening to you stream. They're like looking at you every once in a while, but most of the time they're just watching the chat or they're doing something else. So don't stress about it. If you're not at 1080, just do whatever's going to work and keep your stream like not being choppy and doesn't drop any video, blah, blah, blah. You're also probably going to see much better CPU usage. Speaking of that, now that you know what your resolution is, you also want to look at what you have your camera set to. So if you're using a webcam or a phone, and let's say you're streaming at 960 by 540. If your webcam's set to 1080, your computer has to process from 1080 down to 540 before it sends it out. That's a huge bottleneck, especially if you're running more than one camera, whatever. So set your resolution on your cameras as low and as close to your output resolution as possible. I was running my cameras at 1080, and when I lowered them down to 720, I literally cut my processor usage in half. The other thing that's really going to help you is if you're using video overlays or you're cutting to videos, same deal. If your video overlay is 1080, your computer's got to process that down before it sends it out. So make all of your videos the resolution of your output, and you're just going to see your processor usage go way down. Your computer's going to be a lot happier. Your stream's going to be a lot better. Boom. And now my last point. And I never like to tell people how to spend their money, but if you're watching this, you're most likely a DJ, you make a living, or at least a side living, using a laptop that's some level of performance and specs. So, if you're streaming on one laptop, number one, that's not really recommended. It's super risky for the streaming or the DJ software to mess up. Definitely don't be recording while you're doing that. But maybe now's the time to think about getting that second laptop. Or if you're on some old laptops and you're having some issues, maybe think about getting a new one. I know everything's crazy right now, times might be tough, but it's probably a good idea to, number one, make sure you have the external hard drives and you're backing all that stuff up. But, you know, even not getting a brand new computer, but like a newer computer. I mean, I'm talking to guys that are streaming on 8 or 9 year old computers. maybe get something that's a couple years old that you used. I buy all my laptops and desktops through the Apple refurbished site. You get a warranty and everything. They're great. I buy all my phones used. So, maybe you can bump up to that being your main DJ laptop. You're using the old computer as your streaming laptop. That way, if that one dies, it's like whatever. But if you have a problem with your new one, at least you have a backup. So something else to think about with your streaming, you might be able to dial that in. The Mac Minis are a great value processor for price if you have some extra accessories laying around like mice and maybe a monitor or something like that. So anyways, hopefully these tips helped. DJ Simi here again from Private Stock Records. I'll see you on the streams. If you need help, Google it first. Don't ask me. I believe in you. You're a grown-ass adult. You can figure this out.